My father is a boxing enthusiast. I was influenced by him and started boxing at a very young age. This experience happened when I was 23 years old. At that time, I was taking part in boxing training. We were working in teams of 2 and we were fighting against each other. This training was both challenging and fun for me. I managed to knock my opponent to the ground in a fierce real-life confrontation. I felt proud and excited. When the coach blew the whistle to stop, I stepped back and stood my ground. However, just then, my opponent suddenly sneaked up on me. I was completely defenseless. I lost my balance and eventually fainted on the ground. The attack left me in shock and pain because I did not expect my opponent to strike at this time. The coach helped me into the restroom. At that time, my consciousness started to become blurred and my breathing became difficult. The coach realized the seriousness of the situation and the coach immediately called the emergency number. A short time later, an ambulance arrived at the training facility and quickly transported me to the hospital. When I arrived at the hospital, my body temperature was rising rapidly. The doctor immediately took steps to lower my body temperature. The doctor got ice packs and placed them around my body. But my physical state was still unstable. Suddenly, my vision began to blur. After a while, when I slowly opened my eyes, I found myself in a completely different place. In this place, I could not feel the pain I felt before, and everything became peaceful. The room looked very old. The walls of the room were made of rough stone. The ceiling of the room was made of sturdy wood. There was a table in the center of the room, which was made of rustic wood. Standing in front of me was a man who opened his arms to me as if to welcome me. The man was wearing a robe with a golden sash around his waist with an elaborate buckle. A brown shawl was draped over his shoulders. His skin looked healthy and smooth. And his hair and beard were black. At that time, I did not know this man. I was later told that the man was Jesus. Jesus did not speak, but his eyes were full of warmth and compassion. I had a feeling of acceptance and reassurance. In the room, I noticed that there was another lady. She exuded nobility and grace. She had golden hair. This lady was wearing a sophisticated blue dress. When I saw her, I tried to shake hands with her. The moment I touched her hand, a wonderful feeling instantly filled my whole body. It was like traveling through time and space, and we were suddenly in a completely different place. This place was a garden. This garden was filled with flowers and plants of all colors, emitting an intoxicating aroma. In the center of the garden was a huge fountain. Behind the fountain was a vast meadow. I could see the lake and the mountains in the distance. There were also a few small boats in the lake. Here, I saw a slice of my past life. I saw many things that happened in the past, covering all aspects of my life. I saw a new classmate in elementary school who was often excluded and isolated. I decided to take the initiative to approach him, talk to him and become his friend. Slowly, he became more outgoing and confident, which made me feel very happy because I knew I was making a positive impact on his life. I also saw that during a past argument, I said something hurtful out of anger. I didn't think about the consequences of my words. My words hurt the other person's feelings and had a negative impact on our relationship. I also saw little things that I had forgotten. Those forgotten memories now resurfaced in my mind. These things may not mean much, but they form a part of my life. When she held my hand again, we traveled again. It was as if we had arrived in ancient Roman times. The architecture here was very interesting to me. The surrounding buildings were magnificent, with heavy wooden beams decorating the entrance. One particularly majestic building caught my attention, with its huge columns. There were some people wearing gorgeous clothes, and the style looked very exquisite. They wore golden jewels. However, most people wore plain and practical clothes. Their costumes were simple, but everyone looked very energetic. Suddenly, several people gathered around. One of the men was wearing a loose robe made of rough linen. The cuffs of the robe were decorated with simple embroidery. He also wore a thin cord as a belt. The other female wore a soft tunic in a soft light blue color. One of them approached me and asked me who I was. Although I felt a little confused, I told him my name. This person then asked for more information about my family and seemed to want to confirm my identity. Then, they asked for information about my grandfather. I told them. They seemed relieved to hear my answer and had a look of joy on their faces. They told me that they were my grandfather's great-grandparents, and the news came as a shock to me. These people were full of goodwill and they welcomed me, telling me how happy they were to see me. These relatives extended their arms to me and hugged me. Their hugs made me understand that this was a safe place. Next, they led me into a spacious hall. We were surrounded by a bright white light, which gave a pleasant and peaceful feeling. In the hall, I noticed a soft blue glow emanating from us, which seemed to symbolize a mysterious power. The relatives led me to a special area. I saw that this room was filled with chairs that were stately and ornate. They seemed to be seats with special meaning, and they represented the family's heritage and authority. They showed me my grandfather's chair. This chair was at the end of the hall. It was made of precious wood, inlaid with jewels and ornate ornaments. I sat in the chair for a while and it gave me great comfort. I looked around curiously. I saw that the surroundings were filled with every generation of my father's family, whose existence dates back hundreds of years. They each sat in their own chairs, each with a unique style and character. They sat quietly and solemnly. The members of these families wear distinctive costumes that showcase the cultures of different eras. The earliest generations were dressed in ancient and simple costumes. They wore wide robes, made of rough linen or cotton, in dark brown colors. Their clothes were not overly decorated. I also saw some more modern clothes. They wore slim-fitting robes made of wool. Their clothes pay more attention to tailoring and details. Through these different generations of clothing, I could feel that each generation had its own unique style and characteristics. I noticed that the older generation did not come up to talk to me. I felt confused and wondered the reason for this. Perhaps it was because they were not familiar with me yet, or out of a traditional conservatism. Even though they did not interact with me, I could feel the caring look in their eyes. Shortly after, I saw a woman approaching me. She had a dazzling glow that was unlike any other. Her eyes were filled with warmth and compassion. She was wearing a light blue robe. As she approached me, I felt a strong wave of love. This love made me feel at ease and relaxed, like a baby in its mother's arms. Her gaze was gentle and deep, as if she could see into my heart. She gently stroked my hair. She said to me in a soft voice, "Child, now you must go back to Earth where there is still work you need to finish." Although I did not want to leave this place, I understood that I could not stay here. There were still many things waiting for me to accomplish. At the moment of farewell, my relatives surrounded me, expressing their love and blessings to me. A white light surrounded me and I floated. Time and space gradually distorted and I was brought back to earth. When I opened my eyes, I saw my father standing by the bed, holding my hand tightly. He couldn't contain his emotions. His eyes were moist. This was the first time I saw my father cry. My father had always been a very strong man. When I returned home, I told my grandfather about the experience. My grandfather could no longer stand and was dependent on a wheelchair to get around after a fall 2 years ago. It was a huge blow to him, and he had experienced moments of depression and despair, and had even tried to commit suicide. I sat next to him and began to describe everything I had seen in heaven. I told him that I had met many relatives in that wonderful place and that they were all friendly and welcoming to me. I specifically mentioned the room full of chairs. I described vividly the scene there, where everyone was surrounded by love and joy. During our conversation, I could feel the change in my grandfather's heart. He began to let go of his past frustrations and despair, and my words seemed to touch his heart. In that moment, I saw a determined glint in my grandfather's eyes. A smile appeared on his face and he tightened his grip on my hand.